Do we need a teacher? An analogy of what finding a good spiritual teacher is like is an experience that I have had that is common, at least for me, to find in third world countries. Let's take Kathmandu for an example. I well remember getting off the small plane and walking across the wet tarmac. It had been raining, and into the small customs office. Blooming plants were all around, and the warm, humid night air was filled with fragrance. Once inside, it took a long, long time, passing customers, exchanging money, and so on. And after that, we were directed toward a double door and almost pushed from the station. Emerging outside into the warm, wet night again, we were faced with a solid wall of cabbies and touts. They were all standing on the other side of the street. They were waving and gesturing for our attention, and it was scary. Between the touts and ourselves was a policeman or two. It seems that we stood there for some time, not knowing when to cross beyond the police line and what might happen when we did. When we finally ventured beyond where the policeman stood, clutching all our many bags and holding them close to us, the line of cabbies and touts all rushed forward, completely surrounding us. And they literally began grabbing and taking away our luggage, which is what we were hanging on to for dear life. That experience with the touts, in my opinion, is what trying to find a spiritual teacher these days can be like. The would-be teachers being the touts. If this is insulting to spiritual teachers, I apologize. But let me be clear. I'm not jockeying to be a teacher, nor do I think I'm your teacher or should be. If I were a teacher, I would have students. And I can honestly say that I have no students that I recognize, at least in the world of astrology or any spiritual discipline. A student would be someone that I feel has fully understood my particular astrological lineage. Someone who's empowered, in my eyes, to pass that lineage on. Carry on the tradition. Nada. So, what am I? What I am is an older family person who's been around a bit and who has taught himself much of what he knows. As a child of the 60s, I like to share what I'm interested in with others. If I can be of use in that way, I'm grateful. That being said, in my own life, teachers have been very, very important. I don't consider myself generally lucky, like winning the lottery, but I have been really lucky in finding life or spiritual teachers. Since I have perhaps learned a little something about having teachers and what they are about, I'd like to share just a few thoughts with you. I imagine some of you must wonder about having a teacher. I certainly did. First, as is often the case with me, the Tibetan Buddhists seem to have the best understanding as to what a teacher's true job is. So let's start with that. And of course, that's like starting at the top. And please think about this carefully. I had to. It is said that a Dharma teacher's job is over when he or she has pointed out to the student the true nature of his or her mind, and the student has recognized that nature. Period. End of story. Another way to say this is that a teacher is someone who is capable of actually pointing out to us personally the true nature of our mind and how it works, and we get it. Anything else is gravy. Like if they're a nice person, or they have good manners, are clean, or dress well, or whatever we might imagine is desirable in our idea of a teacher. And although teachers can be our, quote, friend, unquote, that's not part of their job description, nor is hanging out with our teachers very likely. I mean, anything's possible, and almost all things eventually happen, but don't look for that. Life teachers, in my experience, are not folks we get too personal in a social sense with. At least that's been my experience. And teachers' personalities are none of our business. When I met the Venerable Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and we were in a one-to-one situation, the first thing he did was drink a bottle of sake and then teach me to meditate. The learning to meditate was the teaching. The drinking sake was none of my business. The same goes with trying to judge the effectiveness of a teacher by seeing if they measure up to some internal standard we have. I mean, what standards could we have? If we knew what a teacher has to know to teach us, we wouldn't need a teacher. My first life teacher used to say, don't ever say nobody knows, just say, I don't know. In other words, we're in no position to grade teachers except as to whether they can actually teach us and whether we can, in fact, learn what we most need to learn from contact with them. There are said to be 84,000 Dharma teachings, so there must be 84,000 kinds of students and teachers. We each only need one teacher, and that's the one who can teach us. And even that seems hard enough to find. Your particular teacher might be a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker, etc. They may be fat, thin, tall, short, kind, nasty, attractive, repulsive, and so on. The only relevant question is whether they can point out to you the true nature of your mind and how it works so that you can recognize it. Of course, if they happen to be kind, compassionate, gentle, soft-spoken, and appear wise, etc., so much the better. But where the rubber meets the road is whether they can introduce you to your own mind so that you see it, recognize it. And note this as well. Being introduced to our own mind, seeing the true nature of our mind, recognizing the nature of the mind, is not the same as enlightenment, or even close. This is something that took me years to understand. Recognizing the true nature of the mind and how it works is the first and single step that ends for us the confusion of endlessly searching for the way, and instantly puts the responsibility for our own eventual enlightenment squarely in our hands, rather than our looking for something outside ourselves, like you guessed it, a teacher. Got it? The takeaway here is that a teacher's main job is to redirect our search for something that we've been looking outside ourselves for, like to find a teacher, back upon itself, i.e., pointing out to us that it's only inside our own selves that we'll ever find the true nature of the mind. And then we have to find it. The teacher is the one person who can do that for us. In other words, the teacher is kind enough to bother to redirect us to where we should have been looking all along, and skillful and patient enough with us to help us get it. We all already know that we're supposed to look within. We can read that in a book. But who has shown us how to do that? Who has shown us where to look? And those of you who think you're going to just get it and do it yourself, get a Nature of the Mind kit, please think again. The Tibetan Buddhists, the great masters that I've listened to, are very clear that each of us has been wandering in cyclic existence forever, and we have yet to recognize the true nature of our own mind, even though it's been right in front of us all along. The chances of our lucking upon it, just happening to find it without any direction, are infinitesimal. It won't happen. And this is why Dharma teachers exist, to point this out to us. So the bottom line is that we do need a teacher, and we just need to have one teacher, not a dozen, but we need to find the one that will work with us. Now, we can all locate yoga teachers, math teachers, Pilates teachers, astrology teachers, and all kinds of other teachers of what the Buddhists call the relative truths. A relative truth in Buddhism is the one that can help us get moving and making progress. Moving perhaps from here to there. And astrology is one of those truths. It's relatively helpful, but not absolutely helpful. Only an authentic for us, Dharma teacher can reveal the absolute truth, the most important truth, to us by being able to successfully point out the true nature of our own mind so that we can see, so that we can at last see it. This is what's called in Tibetan Buddhist tradition the pointing out instructions. And in the Zen Buddhist tradition, it's called Kensho. How important is it to find an authentic teacher? In my opinion, my answer is very important. Is it easy? No. It's difficult because there are so many would-be teachers out there that can't help us. Even otherwise authentic teachers may just not be our teacher, are not capable of grasping just what it is that we personally need in order to wake up, and then giving it to us. Now, I can see from various comments that I've gotten from students that we are most familiar with teachers of what we call the relative truths, which simply put are studies of anything and everything in the world, the content of anything. All relative truths such as astrology, psychology, gardening, etc. offer us a way to progress, a way to get around in this cyclic world that we're living and have always lived in. If we are here, a relative truth like astrology can help us to get to there, to some place we want to go, or progress to, a sense of having progressed. It's like, and this is an analogy I think is just a wonderful analogy, it's like a relative truth is like traveling on the surface of a sphere. We can go anywhere, all 360 degrees, but no matter where we go across the surface, it will never be toward the center. Relative truths share the quality of being concerned with this world of peripheral external things. With relative truths, we're using our minds to look or study some subject or another. And while there's nothing wrong with relative truths and relative truth teachers, in a very real way they can only scratch the surface. With relative truths, we are examining the content of the mind, like what we think about, contemplation, but we're not examining the mind itself. It's when we use our mind to look at itself that we get into the realm of absolute or true truth. When we learn to look at who is doing the looking, that's when we immediately touch on a whole other kind of truth. One that does not have a looker and a looked at, an object of study. But the two are somehow one. We learn to look at the looker, so to speak. This is what I'm here calling absolute truth. And an absolute truth like the Dharma is not concerned with the surface or outside of the sphere of life, but it always takes us inward toward the center, toward the heart of the mind itself. And our mind is the projector of the movie of life that we're all watching. The practice of sitting meditation is the traditional doorway to this kind of inner truth. And once the mind is calm, another kind or form of mind practice appears called insight meditation, and this allows us to go further and to look not at the content of the mind, like astrology, mathematics, and so on, but at the very nature of the mind itself. Another way is to consider this life as a dream. We've all heard that. Row, row, row your boat. Life is but a dream. We all have this dream we call life that we're living, and it cycles, up and down and around and so forth. This is the domain of relative truths like astrology, philosophy, economics, and the like. Our life dream is an endless dream of projection, but it is also one that's it's possible for us to wake up from. And the best means to awaken from this dream called life is some kind of mind or Dharma practice. The Buddhists teach that awakening from the dream of life is similar to waking up from our nightmare dreams, the ones we have at night. We gradually wake up and realize that we've been dreaming. They would use the word distracted all this time. Somehow we've missed the point. This so-called absolute truth of the Dharma teachings cuts through the relative truths like a knife through warm butter and reveals them to us as we might think of a nighttime dream we just had. We just wake up. And while relative truths and their teachers are many, those who can point out the nature of the mind itself are very few. Even harder to find is a Dharma teacher that can successfully point out to each of us personally the true nature of our mind. So in other words, most teachers, relative truth, can show us how to get around and make progress within the dream of life. And this too is helpful. We all do it. We read books about it. However, Dharma teachers can point out how to wake up from that dream altogether into a much greater awareness. I write about this not from the experience of waking up, but by understanding from my teachers how this apparently works. I find it totally fascinating. What about you?